We're talking business, nothing but talk.
This is the Coast Business Radio Podcast.
Trade tensions with China could cripple the Australian wine industry, which is already struggling to bounce back from multi-million-dollar losses caused by drought and coronavirus. Mike Hayes is the president of the Queensland Wine Industry Association. Mike, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Tell us about this stoush that we're supposedly about to have or having, but maybe getting worse with China, and how they can affect the wine industry.
Well, quite seriously, it's what's happened a few months ago, particularly with the COVID virus hitting. Well, as you know, all trade more or less ceased globally. Now that we're starting to come out, and the Chinese, by the way, China itself is emerging more and more solidly every day, and they're opening up businesses. The wine sector has had a slow trickle back in of exports to China. If we continue down this line of telling people that, I say it's the tittle-tattling of the world, who was this, who did that, where did it come from? Look, it's over, forget about it. But if we get this out, which I believe is one of the most invaluable trade partners we have in the world, is the Asian market, and it's right beside our doorstep, they'll simply go elsewhere. Now, this could be crippling for the Australian wine industry. At present, we do export enormous amounts of wine into China and into Japan and other Asian countries. And I don't believe this witch hunt is going to do us any good. We just simply need to move on, forget about it, and realign our business trade. And I'm just dumbfounded. I just shake my head with what the accusations and what they can do to our industry, which has just come out of 2 years drought on the eastern seaboard, followed then by the COVID virus. It's dumbfounding.
It's an interesting occupation being on the land. My father on the land and surrounded by grapes for miles and miles in Victoria. Anyway, here you've had drought, fires, coronavirus. I hate to think what's next. Maybe this trade war is number 4. Who knows?
Well, strangely enough, at the beginning of last spring, we were coming out of one of the worst droughts we've ever had. Then the granite belt down around Stanthorpe got hit with fires. Then from the fires in November, we got hit with frosts, so late spring frost, which got all our grapes on the lower sector beside the creeks. Then we got hit with a hailstorm in December. Then we had floods in January and February. Then we had an insect plague that hit us. And now finally we've got the coronavirus. My goodness, the last thing we need now is, politicians to be having some war of words with a very, very important trading partner, China. And look, just move on. Whatever they find out, it's not going to change things. So it doesn't really matter whether the virus came from Sydney, Rio de Janeiro, New York, or China. It's here, it's there. We've got to learn to live with it and deal with it. And more importantly, we need to maintain our relationships with our very important and invaluable trading partners.
How has the Queensland wine industry been doing in recent years in exports to the various markets, including China?
Well, look, speaking for the bigger wineries in Queensland, as you would realise, there's a lot of small boutique wineries, which are any from 50 tonne down to some of them are only producing 15 to 20 tonne. And it's more of a lifestyle for them, and they're quite happy to coexist with the domestic trade and the small trickling of wines into restaurants or fine wine bottle shops around Brisbane and the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. But the bigger ones have been making some major steps into exporting wine to China, and they've actually had a lot of hard work in breaking down the barriers and forming quite a formidable relationship with China. And for this to have come along and happen, it's going to happen at the wrong.
Because
a lot of hard yards are doing. But yeah, sorry.
China do it. They play the long game, so that in the negotiations and putting things in place and the planning and so forth. With China, that would have probably been a lot slower and more deliberate than, say, with other economies.
Well, my word. And it's slow and steady, and it's also small steps will end up making a huge impact. And to more or less try and destroy this overnight. I just shake my head. I just can't believe it. The Australian industry exports an enormous amount of wine to China, and China is an invaluable partner for Australian. And I don't know, but if you have a look at the figures of how many people the wine industry in Australia employ, it's quite large. It's not just a few. We only seen what the ramifications have happened with the beef sector just recently, and how that's put the kibosh on the beef exports, and what it's done already to their industry. I think you may even see, if it keeps going, beef will be cheaper than chicken, you know what I mean? Which some people might think that's ludicrous, but hey, anything could be happening here. So we really need to, just move on, get away from this, what I call the crazy witch hunt of the world. It doesn't really matter where it's happened, it's here. We've all had to live with it. We all can learn from what's happened with this virus globally and ensure, or try to ensure, to put, steps in place that it doesn't reoccur.
Do you think there's a small amount of hysteria being thrown into this too?
Look, I hate to say it, but it is what I call the media magnate, that, that molehill can be made into Kosciuszko or Mount Everest, and at times it can be over-publicised and exaggerated, but and one small squeak can turn into a very, very large roar. So for me, I hope that I can, we're still trying to realign ourselves, and we've just recently sent over a container of wine to China within the last couple of weeks, but we want to maintain our relationships with the Chinese, and the last thing I want to do is have some trade embargo placed on Australian wine or Australian products. So that's not going to help anybody. This coronavirus, as we all know, it has substantially crippled the Australian economy. Okay, you're talking about the GDP, you're talking about everything. The unemployment. I think when the job keeper stops, our unemployment will be up around 12-15%. Undoubtedly, there'll be businesses who will never come back as big and broad as what they were. But my goodness, we just do not want to be chasing away any business what we can. We want to be opening our doors and accepting everybody at the present time to get our economy up and going. The only way to get economy going and sustain a very, very, noble economy is for people to spend money and for people to make money.
How do you think then the government should be dealing with their issues of concerns, which are quite legit, with the coronavirus investigation? So you're sort of walking on this very thin line, aren't you? How would you do it? What would you do? Look,
having this little witch hunt, as I keep calling it, I think is quite completely irrelevant. Look, everybody is concerned where the virus originated. We're not really sure. Nobody really knows. This virus could have been in other countries prior to being made aware in Wuhan. But it may have even been in America. It could have even been in Italy. It may have started out there. We're not saying it hasn't started, but it's not I don't believe it's a manufactured virus. I reckon it's a virus that is mutated, and it has got away from us. But going forward, I don't believe that this disharmony between the two countries is going to do anybody any good. I would do it. Of course, there's some concern globally about it. There could be an investigation, but it has to be made that it's not a blame game. It's an investigation to find out the source, so this does not reoccur or have repercussions in the future. So we can prepare going down the track that a virus of this capability will never ever again halt global economy, which it has nearly brought the globe to its knees, this virus. So, and if we don't come out soon, if everybody doesn't come out and start trading soon, it's just going to have an enormous detrimental effect on Australian economy. The more and more businesses that go down, the harder it is for us to fight back up. And how I would align with it, I would say, look, okay, if there's a group of countries that are concerned about where it started, we actually jump in and say, look, we're happy to support you financially or whatever to investigate this, but don't lead it. Don't lead the charge. Why would we want to be, pinpointing blame game at one of our best trading partners, or if not the best trading partner in the world? tag along, but don't be the instigator of it. It's just crazy, you know. People coming out and saying, you know, it came from you. It's a little bit like the Donald Trump, you know, like, my goodness, you know, if you ever seen a person with foot and mouth disease, it's him. So
nervous waiting times for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Not nervous though with what you're doing at Sirame.
Well, currently I've just joined Sirame in the last 18 months, and I come from 40 years' experience in the wine industry. In 2012, I was fortunate enough, just quickly, I got awarded the Churchill Fellowship to study emerging wine grape varieties all over Europe. So 50 wine regions and 650 varieties later, I've decided to invest our future here, particularly in Queensland, where we have got the eclectic mix of climates. We can establish small parcels of intricate varieties which are quite interesting, and particularly with our cuisine now and the young millennial stage coming through, they're quite interested in the new phase of wine and food. So we've developed organic vegan range, which we launched last November, and a lot of them are the Italian varieties, but we've also got a Georgian variety from the south of Russia in there. These wines were all al fresco. They're unoaked. They're brought out the same year. They're a softer, easier drinking style and very cosmopolitan and very big fruit friendly. You know, that's the main thing. The main focus was to bring wines out where people could just simply enjoy themselves in company or drink with food. So multi-varietal.
Having grown up on the land, truly, I have no idea why. I mean, even pruning. I mean, you know, it's not just picking of the grapes; it's a pruning. Man, oh man, that is one of the hardest jobs God has ever given someone to have to do. I mean, your hands are butchered. I mean, even though you wear gloves and stuff, I mean, your hands are butchered. It's a terrible job.
Well, I'm 56 this year, and I've been pruning for 45 years.
Oh my goodness!
I'm the luckiest bloke alive. I'm doing what I love, and I love what I do, and I'm doing what I dreamt to do when I was in primary school. So I couldn't ask for a better lifestyle, but it's also very hard work and it's also dedication. But I think the beauty about it now is that an enormous amount of young people are taking up wine consumption, and that's not only healthy, but it's intellectually stimulating. And a glass of wine is as profound and as sophisticated as a university full of books, in my opinion. So,
or more delicious.
It's great to see.
Much more delicious. And it's amazing.
And very delicious.
And it's amazing how much knowledge you can acquire after a couple of glasses of wine.
Oh, we all become philosophers.
We do.
World-led philosophers. So, and I think that's the beauty about it. But look, I've seen it come from the dark ages I began in 1979 to what it is now in Queensland, and it's just tremendous. Queenslanders in particular the only thing is I always say if we were as parochial about our wine industry as we are about our state of origin side, you could plant the entire state with grapes and we still wouldn't be able to supply Queenslanders enough to drink. But, we are slowly winning the battle. They are coming over to our side and trying our wines and enjoying our wines. We are now leading the Australian with emerging varieties. Queensland is.
Mike Hayes, President of Queensland Wine Industry Association. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good day.
This is the Coast Business Radio Podcast.